Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to another adventure in history. I'm your host, Shane McInnes, giant history nerd, wanderer of places, digger of things, general goofy kind of guy. Hope everybody's having a pleasant afternoon. Hope that the world in the last week or so has not brought everybody super down. It is definitely not ideal by any stretch of the means, and I hope everybody's doing okay. Thanks to the Kyle Wright, who has once again subscribed. Much appreciated. Hello to my wonderful wife. To catch everybody up and let everybody know, once again, our stream here is a very laid-back conversation about historical matters. I just realized that I have literally none of my lighting turned on. I'll turn this on and see if that... Hopefully that doesn't completely wash me out. I'm pale enough as it is. Giant lights tend to overwhelm the whiteness here. Yeah, I guess that looks okay. Had some errands to run and didn't get back with a lot of time, and kind of forgot that I was going on at 6 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock, and then had to cram some food in my mouth, and it's been an interesting one this afternoon. Good news, but interesting. Anyway, History Conversations, the name of the game here at Adventures in History. The goal is to break down the stuffiness of history and make everybody aware that it could be super fun, and it's not all just this guy did that thing in that date. It's also lessons that we can learn and sarcastic remarks that we can make. So for those of you that are new to the channel or first-time streamers, you can send me an email here. My email address is mckinnistravels@gmail.com. I'll be welcome to answer any questions that you have. If you don't feel like asking them here in the chat, if you run across something that you see in the news that's interesting, send it my way. Or if you just want an opinion on something, I can give opinions too. You can also follow me on social media at somehistoryguy, where I am very apolitical and I mostly just post interesting history stuff and pictures. So no fear about getting sucked into some giant flame war online. I think that there's enough of those without me helping, right? Nothing is apolitical. That's true. I try to not wade into the weeds. How about that? I do my best to not stir up the pot. At least on my Adventures in History associated social media. If you see me on my Facebook page and my personal social media, I am quite welcome to throw you a sarcastic remark. Hey, random world capital. What continent would you like? So I'm anti-pot now. And anti-weeds. I actually have, well, we don't necessarily need to go into my particular political beliefs here. But Sarah has requested a random world capital. How about Armenia? That one's been interesting on my head lately. I've been thinking about Armenia. The capital of Armenia is Yerevan. Fun stuff. Armenia, by the way, located just north of a couple of kind of confluences of countries there, right around the Turkey, Georgia, Azerbaijan kind of area. Listening on Kyle's PC, but giving you a viewer count. Hey, thanks, Daria, and welcome to everybody. Welcome, David, Kyle, Sarael, and Daria. Cool. Thanks for tuning in. I hope everybody's having a good one. I want the history of Flint, Michigan. Well, this is the place to ask for it. On every other Tuesday, we're doing viewer requests. These topics are chosen by the viewers in the stream, and later at the end of the stream, you will actually have an opportunity to make suggestions and participate in a viewer poll to discuss the topic of our next viewer request episode. So the Thursday night streams are ones that I get to pick, and we're sort of following history in a more or less chronological order, which I think is something that is sorely lacking in a lot of elementary and high school and even college history educations. People tend to jump around a lot, cover things by topic, so it destroys this continuity. But on Tuesdays, I want to do what you all want to listen to. Hopefully you want to listen on Thursdays as well, but I understand that not everything is not super everybody's alley, right? And that's okay. Never mind, you've lived it. Yeah, well, I've got some friends that live up that way, and I've, of course, been watching the news lately, so Flint has been kind of a topic of study for recent periods of time. If I were going to do history of Flint, though, I would roll all the way back to earliest human settlers and talk about Native Americans that lived there first and that kind of stuff. I'd be very, very interested in those. I could probably guess at a couple of the larger tribes, but I would not know enough about them. Oh, yeah, Ojibwa, yeah. So that would be interesting. Suggest it. You never know. People might get super interested in that. Tonight's episode has been requested by our viewers, and this is going to be on Vlad the Impaler. Good old-fashioned ruler in the region known as Wallachia. And, of course, as always, we have a very punny title, which is Vladislav, Baby Don't Hurt Me. Good luck unhearing that one. I tickle myself sometimes, by the way, with these jokes. I'm a big goober, and I get a lot of fun coming up with punny and sarcastic names for stuff. I think it's fun. I hope you all think it's fun as well. I could just call it Vlad the Impaler, and we'll talk about a guy, and we'll do some stuff, but why not throw in pop culture? Hashtag teacher vibes. Oh yeah, hashtag bad dad jokes, and I've taught this stuff way too long, and I end up having the same concepts run through my mind over and over again. I've been humming What is Love all afternoon, and I can't even get my own bad puns out of my head now, so hopefully you all can share some of that with me. Hey, Fid, how's it going? Welcome to the room. Okie doke. So before we get going, I want to remind everybody about a few things. Number one, please remember to throw in... Now it's in your head, too. Yeah, that was partially by intent. So hopefully it will eliminate itself. Also, extra points if anyone has had a flashback to the Night at the Roxbury SNL skits. I love Brand's castle architecture and have been compiling photos for Mouse Guard reference. Awesome. Oh, let me do a shout out here for some people in the room. We have with us David Peterson. See, there's my little dollar sign, so I'm getting that thing too. That was showing up in David's stream. Okay, so David Peterson, author, illustrator of comic book Mouse Guard, also friend of the channel, and we have with us also Daria Axanova, very, very talented three-dimensional paper crafting, ink, narrative, visual storyteller. Really amazing stuff. If you're not familiar with these two great artists, please go check them out. Both friends of the channel, both good people. People that I consider friends. Shout out to me. Hey. So as always, as we're going, ooh, where'd you get the Illuminati from? Oh, we could use that one as a global? Okay. I might have to start throwing that one anyway. One of my guilty pleasure YouTube series, by the way, is a YouTube series called Illuminati Confirmed. And the people who make the videos type all of this stuff out and play it through Microsoft Word's voice, text-to-voice thing, and then make all of these ridiculously weird connections. And it's like, you know, Pokemon is Illuminati confirmed. Really goofy stuff, but it always makes me giggle. Risky Milk. Okay. Oh, Very Handsome Billy. Pretty cool. Interesting, very, very talented musician who can pick up a song off of a request, and Very Handsome Billy, this has sort of an array of tools and both digital musical tools and actual instruments around him, and builds beats and music on stream, and really interesting guy to watch. Getting a lot of attention, and rightfully so. Very, very cool guy. Very chill room. He's got a lot of people in there usually, so keeping up with the chat is sometimes an issue, but I mean, when you've got 5,000 people. Yeah, back to Vlad. I'm talking about other cool people, just to be, you feel like you're at the Roxbury? Okay, there we go. I'll make a personal, before we get going completely, I'll make a personal confession here. I have really grown to appreciate the Twitch community, especially in the artist group. I have not ventured very far into the world of video game streams. They seem to be significantly more less laid back. I'll just leave it there. But I have met and encountered some really cool, really great people here on Twitch, and I count myself lucky to be amongst so many great creative people. So if you are one of those people, an honest thank you. So here we go. Ask questions, make sarcastic remarks, be as goofy as you want to. This is not a lecture, it's a conversation. We're just sitting around talking. I just happen to be the guy that's running my mouth the most. Let me know what you think. Use some channel points if you want to. I've got some creative, interesting things thrown in there that are not just the sort of stereotypical Twitch preload stuff. So participate, ask, or lurk. If you want to just hang out and be chill, you do your thing. I'm glad that you're here. Hope that you have a good time. So let's talk about Vlad. So to begin with, Vlad is Vlad even. What is that, like? I impaled, I saw, I conquered. Maybe it should be Vinny Vidi. I don't even know. It's a good joke. I'll take it. The dog is walking around behind me. Anyway, so the problem of Vlad the Impaler is multifold. Number one, the time that he lived in, and what we're talking about is the period of time from around the 1400s to around the 1600s. Now, of course, he didn't live that entire time. He's born somewhere around 1430. We don't actually know when he was born, and he died about 1477. But to understand that period of time, you sort of have to know or did he? You have to know the story about what happens in the kind of 11 and 1200s, and you also have to know a little bit about the 12 and 1300s, and you sort of actually have to know a little bit about after he died to sort of get the whole picture of this guy. And in some ways, he is way more fascinating than the myths around him. But in other ways, he is the most boring guy to study in the world. And we'll sort of deal with this paradox as we're going through. But to sort of lay the ground here, we have to talk about some big countries in the region. And the region that we're talking about is going to be this region right here, which is called the Balkan Peninsula. And especially this... Ooh, whoa. Google got away from me here. This region over here, which is the eastern part of the Balkan Peninsula. Let me throw up some borders here, and we'll look at modern-day countries. Modern-day countries, Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, the country of Hungary, Moldova, larger country here of Ukraine. These regions right here are going to be involved on multi-layers of the deal. In a larger part of the world at the time, Bulgaria is one of the powerhouses. So if we look at from about the late 1100s until just before 1400, there's actually a really big Bulgarian Empire, which is something that a lot of people don't really know a whole lot about because it's never really discussed very much. You've got no video for the moment, but it's low bandwidth. Anybody else having video problems? I'm showing green, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Everybody's okay? All right, so let's look real quick at a map here. This is our Bulgarian Empire, and we're looking in 1371. This is the second Bulgarian Empire. There's actually an earlier one. The earlier one collapsed quite some time before this, but this region right here is going to be important for a few reasons. Number one, we've got the Ottoman Empire, and they're going to be one of the major combatants. You have this region right here, which is part of Bulgaria. This larger part right here is Bulgaria. That's part of their empire. And then you have this region right here, which is called Wallachia. And there's another country up here, which is the country of Hungary, and another kingdom over here called Moldavia. These are all going to basically be the front lines of the war against the Ottoman expansion. And the Ottomans are going to be particularly interested in this region, starting once the Ottomans actually take over the larger region. Wrong button. The Turks controlled that area before that, but there was a different version of the Turks called the Seljuks, and then there were these other Muslim people called the Abbasids, and there's a whole sort of intra-Muslim war, and the Ottomans start taking over during the 1300s. They're going to be one of the bigger powers that starts to chip away at this larger Bulgarian Empire. So Bulgaria is still going to be a player, but for most of Vlad's life, Bulgaria is going to be completely under the control of the Ottomans. The country that Vlad actually rules is called Wallachia. And it is not... it's not Transylvania. Transylvania is actually another place. At various times, Wallachia is going to control parts of Transylvania, but this is one of the first myths that we have to start kind of dispelling. The idea that Vlad sat up in some weird castle ruling Transylvania is not completely accurate. Wallachia was originally part of the Bulgarian Empire, but when the Ottomans began to expand, the Bulgarian Empire started collapsing at the end of the 1300s, and Wallachia is going to become independent, and that's going to put Wallachia right on the border with the Ottomans. So the Ottomans want to take it over. The Ottomans are very interested in this region because, of course, they really do want to take over all of Europe. So you're right on the front lines if you're Wallachia. The other big Christian kingdoms in the area are the Hungarians. Hungary at the time was significantly larger than it is today. And the Hungarians were another sort of expansion, sort of minded group of people. They had some strategic locations around river crossings and mountain passes, and they were able to make a lot of money off of trade. They're going to try to exert their influence over Wallachia more as Bulgaria is falling down. So as the Ottomans are expanding against Bulgaria, Hungary is rising in sort of the overall power in the region because they were number two, but number one is falling apart now. And Hungary is going to have a big, big role to play, especially a couple of rulers of Hungary in Vlad's life. The other country that we're going to need to talk about a lot is Moldavia, which is, again, let me flash back over here to the map because I'm referencing these things and not pointing at it. So zoom in just a bit. All right, so Hungary is up here to the northern and eastern border of Wallachia, and Moldavia is here to the northern and eastern border. And Moldavia is not going to be as much of a threat to the independence of Wallachia, mostly because they sit here on this Black Sea coastline, and this is going to sort of put them at the apex of Ottoman naval expansion, because the Ottomans have a really, really big navy, and the southern part of Moldavia is actually going to end up falling eventually to the Ottomans, and then later on a whole bunch of stuff. And then right at the end of our discussion, we'll talk a little bit about the Kingdom of Poland, which was actually the Eastern European superpower for quite some time. Well, not quite some time. For a couple of 100 years, Poland was a very, very big and powerful country that controlled a large region of Eastern Europe that had a lot of beef with the Ottomans. And they're going to try their best to come out on top of the Ottomans a bit. So these are the big regional powers that we have to be aware of. And the way that these countries are going to treat each other is going to be very dirty. So let's just be open and honest right off of the bat. When are we? That's a great question. Vlad lives from about 430 AD to about 476 or 477 AD. The majority of the material that I'm talking about is background. So the early, middle, and late 1300s is when the Ottomans are starting to expand very rapidly up into the Balkan Peninsula and destabilizing a lot of these countries. Oh, the year that Poland is a power. So the Polish are going to start fairly small as a bit of an island between the larger Habsburg monarchies of what we would call the Holy Roman Empire and the growing power of the Russian Tsardom. And Poland's going to develop a little bit of a pocket between the early 1300s to about the middle to late 1500s, and they're going to actually be involved in a lot of the big sort of land wars after the introduction of Protestants. They're part of the 30 Years' War. They do a lot of sort of political machination kind of stuff going on during the late 1500s and early 1600s, but then they cease to exist. They get gobbled up by the expanding power of the Habsburgs and the expanding power of Russia, and then they're not a country again until, well, the end of World War I. But good questions. So, who is this Vlad guy, right? Well, to understand who he is, we had to talk about that background stuff. He is born into this period of time where there is a lot of trouble. There are really big empires like the Ottoman Empire and the Holy Roman Empire that are pushing and pulling a lot in this Balkan Peninsula. And even amongst the little states inside the Balkan Peninsula, there's a lot of pushing and pulling. So Vlad is actually born into a time that is very tumultuous. And just because you were Christian did not mean that you were friendly. There was this larger sort of existential threat to Christianity that was the expansion of the Ottomans, who were Muslim. But that doesn't mean that you automatically had to like your Christian brothers and fight against the Ottomans with them. There's going to be a lot of backstabbing and side switching and with you now against you later-ism that goes on in this world. And Vlad's dad, also ironically named Vlad, Vlad II, is going to be the ruler of Wallachia. These rulers aren't called kings. They go by the title voivode. So Vlad's not actually a king. He's a voivode. And he's a voivode actually 3 different times, but we'll get to that. So Vlad II is going to gain his position as voivode through some political machinations. His half-brother was voivode, and then he died. And Vlad II, the Impaler's father, is going to take over. And he's going to really take on this mantle of fighting against the Ottomans, which is where we get the title Dracul from. All right, so the Holy Roman Emperor at this time, this is in the early 1400s, so probably like the 1410s region. The Holy Roman Emperor is going to create something called the Order of the Dragon. And there are going to be a lot of nobles in the border regions that are going to join this order, and the whole purpose of this Order of the Dragons is to keep the Ottomans from expanding into the larger European world. And to a certain extent, this was a direct ploy by the Holy Roman Emperor to get a lot of these border lords to fight for him, even if they didn't necessarily recognize his authority, because you wanted to be friends with the Habsburgs. They're super filthy rich. They are really in deep and in good with the Pope. They have a lot of ability to influence global politics at the time. So you want to be these guys' buddies. You don't necessarily want to be ruled by them, but if you can keep the Holy Roman Empire on your side, you want to do that. And Vlad II is going to join this order, which is why he becomes Vlad Dracul. I have a picture of his dad. There aren't very many images of his father, but there is a fairly nice... that's for later, actually. This is Vlad II. This is a fresco of him with the sort of trademark funky-looking mustache. Lots of the rulers have these really wicked, funky mustaches that kind of stick out the sides of their head. But this is Vlad the Impaler's father. Interesting guy, he. So, when Vlad II is ruling, he's going to be sort of set against the Ottomans. And he looks like Freddie Mercury. He does kind of look like Freddie Mercury. Yeah, I'll take that. So Vlad II has several sons, and Vlad the Impaler is his second son. All right. So Vlad was never necessarily guaranteed to be able to rule. His older brother was named Mercia, and when his dad was doing crazy stuff, it was Mercia that his father protected. So at a very early age, and by the way, we don't actually know very much about Vlad's mother. There is a lot of suspicion that she was from Moldavia, and this is mostly because of some actions that Vlad takes later in his life. But we don't know her name. There are some theories behind who she might be and who she might be kin to. But we don't really know a lot about his mother. We don't even really know when he was born. We know we can infer his age based on the date that he was able to take over, right? So there's a particular age that you have to be to basically gain the ruling mantle. And if he was that age at that time, we can infer back in history to sort of guess that he was born somewhere around 1430. But his early life is going to be pretty blank. And this is one of those moments where you would think that somebody as sort of famous or infamous might be a better word, as Vlad would have this really elaborate life story that his whole world would be mapped out. We would know what he ate for breakfast and what color underoos he wore. We don't know jack about this guy until he's about 12 or 13. We don't even have a reference of him until his dad writes a letter that goes, "Oh yeah, I've got another son." And this leaves a giant blank, right? So what is he doing for his kid? You know, is he like impaling his teddy bears on stuff? Is he really excited about going to the family cookout because he likes sticking stuff on skewers and roasting them over the fire? We don't know. Was he some sort of like Damien Omen kid? Or was he just a little kid that grew up and, you know, was the son of a noble, so he's kind of spoiled, but he's the second son, so nothing's really expected of him, which makes him more spoiled. Was writing common as a communication then? Oh, yeah. Most of the stuff that we know about sort of day-to-day operations of these kingdoms in the Balkans at the time come from official letters that were circulated between rulers of particular areas and official decrees. There were a couple of big monasteries in the region that produced books, but we're not quite to the point where we have regularly printed, bound books. This is prior to the printing press showing up in Europe. But official decrees, royal decrees were still moving around. The literacy rate was still very, very low, probably in the single-digit percentiles in this region. And it's also helpful to remember that even though these people are the nobles of Wallachia, Wallachia itself, this is it's not a big, super wealthy kingdom. There are people there that have money, but this is not a fantastically wealthy place. It's kind of a backwater, and I'm not trying to be insulting to it, but on the scale of global power, it's like a tier 3 country, right? Was he turning into a bat? We don't know. When Vlad's dad only wrote about him then, was it one of 3 letters or one of 2,000? Oh, that's a great question. We don't have a whole bunch. Usually when we get rulers like this, we might have 15, maybe 20 letters for their entire rule, because it was still very expensive, right? Because you're having to pay somebody to move all of the stuff around. You're usually going to have to send gifts, especially if you're sending stuff between noble houses. Like if I'm the voivode of Wallachia and I'm sending a letter to the king of Hungary, I'm going to have to include some sort of little gift with that, just to show that we're still buddies, you know? So there are not hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of letters from Wallachia at this time. We might have a couple of dozen that stretch the entire lifespan of Vlad. Now, what is interesting is that the events of his life, the crazy crap that he ends up doing, is going to make people write about him after he's dead. Especially some later Greek historians that are sort of wrapped up inside of the Muslim world. Also German historians and even some Muslim historians go, that guy was crazy. Mice had printing press in the 1100s. There you go. So this is part of my larger confirmation that mice are actually from the Song dynasty of China. Because the Song dynasty of China had the printing press in the 1100s as well. Okay, so we don't know a lot about him until about 1442. His dad was in a bad spot. After Bulgaria had collapsed, Hungary was rising, and Wallachia stuck between the Hungarians on the north and the Ottomans on the south. And this is not a good place to be, right? You don't want to be stuck between 2 big, powerful countries, especially countries that you can't hope to defeat. Wallachia could not have beaten the Ottomans, and it could not have beaten the Hungarians, right? So this is like being the freshman stuck between 2 seniors on the bus. You're in a bad spot, right? So one of the guys that's going to be incredibly important to the larger discussion is a dude. Oh, and I've got to show you this guy. This is a Hungarian nobleman, and his name is John Hunyadi, and he's nicknamed the Crow. But this guy is going to be a thorn in the side of Wallachia for the rest of his life, basically. He is an incredibly powerful border lord in the Kingdom of Hungary. He is interested in... John Hunyadi, for those of you that didn't catch all of that stuff, is a very important border lord from Hungary. He is going to be really important because he's going to start poking at the Wallachians. He wants to get them to join with him and the larger Hungarian Empire to fight against the Ottomans. But Vlad II is going to have interesting different ideas. He's open to dealing with the Ottomans directly, but that's not going to turn out very well. He's going to end up that he does need to side with the Hungarians, but that makes the Ottomans very angry. And the Ottomans are going to decide, we're just going to invade you. Twitch has been laggy and kicking me off like crazy for the last week or two. It's not just you. Well, I appreciate that, Kelly. It's frustrating because number one, it cuts my VOD and I have to go back in and play all around with that stuff. But also, I know it's just a pain in the rear end, right? To have to go back and cut stuff. So I don't know if it's just a billion people being on Twitch at the same time, or if my computer is funky, or if my laptop is not connected very well. I don't know what's going on. I do honestly apologize, though. So let's try to make some headway before this junk craps out on us again. So John Hunyadi comes up with this idea that he and the Wallachians are going to attack the Ottomans. And this is going to make the Ottomans very upset because they had thought that Vlad was going to be on their side. And again, this is still Vlad's father, Vlad II. And the Ottomans are basically going to demand that Vlad show up. Like, they're going to summon him officially and say, you've got to come and sit before the Sultan and explain yourself. And Vlad II makes an interesting decision. He decides that he's going to bring two of his sons with him. Vlad III, who is our Vlad, and Vlad's brother, a kid named Radu, who's going to be important later on. And they get captured and taken hostage. And for a significant portion of the next 3 or 4 years, Vlad the Impaler, the future Impaler, would he be pre-Impaler at this moment? I don't know. Anyway, Vlad is going to live as a hostage in the Ottoman kingdom, the Ottoman Empire. And you would think that this would be a deterrent, right? So Vlad II, who's still voivode of Wallachia, decides at that point, you would think that he would go, they have two of my sons, I should do whatever they tell me. But that's not really the way that Vlad II wants to play this. He's an Order of the Dragon. He's going to stand up for what he believes is right. And so he just continues to tick off the Ottomans. He is going to support a big Christian crusade called the Crusade of Varna, which is against Ottoman territory. He's going to basically make it known that he is a Christian first, and he doesn't really care so much about the Ottomans. And at a certain point, we do have one of these letters that basically says, yeah, my kids are definitely dead. Like, there's no way that my actions haven't caused the Ottoman Sultan to kill my kids. And you know what? They're going to die martyrs because I'm a Christian and I'm doing what I'm going to do. And if they kill my kids, I don't like them anyway. And he's kind of like throwing away the lives of his kids, but it doesn't really matter because this is son 2 and 3, right? And there's actually another Vlad that's called Vlad the Monk, who is an illegitimate kid, which is why you send him off to the monastery, right? And you have still the first son, Mercia. Thanks, Dad. Great fatherly advice from Vlad II. Give your enemies your children and then still tick them off, and if they kill them, whatever. So the Ottomans are going to kind of give this guy one more shot. Like, look, we are way bigger than you. Our interests are going to eventually overwhelm you. Straighten yourself up. Look, this Hunyadi guy doesn't like you anyway. You come back over to our side, and we'll make it worth your while. Well, Vlad decides, okay, sure, why not? They still do have my sons. Vlad and Radu are released to go back home. And this is sort of a goodwill gesture from the Sultan, like, look, I could have killed your children, but I didn't. Look, see, I'm a reasonable man. We can be reasonable together. And this, of course, is going to tick off Hunyadi, who's going to invade Wallachia, right? So you double-cross me and go back to the Ottomans, I'm going to invade you and take you over. Well, as soon as that happens, Vlad II decides, you know what? It might actually be safer for my children to grow up in the Ottoman court. So he sends his sons back to the Ottomans and goes, you guys hold on to my kids because I've got to go fight off this Hunyadi guy. And that doesn't go so great because Hunyadi kills Vlad II and he kills Vlad III's older brother Mercia in 1444. And what does that mean about Vlad III? Well, that should technically mean that he is the voivode of Wallachia. But it doesn't really work out that way because John Hunyadi goes, I have killed Wallachia, I have captured Wallachia, they are now part of Hungary. So Wallachia is not really independent anymore. And then Hunyadi gets a big head, and he goes, you know what, I've had some success, why don't we just go attack the Ottomans again? That doesn't go so great. The Ottomans at this point are really ticked off that one of their vassal states, Wallachia, has just been taken over by these Hungarians. When you give your word to protect a country, you're supposed to follow through and protect a country, right? So what you gonna do? Well, here's what you do. You take Vlad III, who at this point is probably somewhere between 14 and 16 or so, and you stick him at the head of an Ottoman army, and you tell him, you go retake your homeland, and when you retake your homeland, we're going to put you on the throne. So Vlad becomes voivode by gaining assistance from the Ottomans. And of course, that means when he gets put in as ruler the first time in 1448, because it takes a while to fight all these battles, he's going to have to swear allegiance to the Ottomans because they were the ones that put him there in the first place. And this, of course, is going to just hack off Hunyadi because the whole purpose of attacking Wallachia in the first place was to make it part of Hungary. So now everybody's upset. Who's going to be the king of this or the leader of that or blah, blah, blah. Well, Vlad is only going to stay voivode for about 2 months. Because when all of this mess is going on, Poland decides it's a great time to expand its own borders. And the Polish are going to come down with a really big army. And they're going to kind of scatter the Ottomans because the Ottomans don't expect this big thing. Yeah, let's not argue about who killed who. Huge tracts of land. That's what we're after, right? The Polish are going to show up kind of out of nowhere, scatter the Ottomans, and run Hunyadi back into the Hungarian world. But then Vlad, who has just taken power like 2 months ago, is going to get kicked out and have to run back to the Ottomans again. So he only gets to be voivode for literally just basically the winter of 1448. So there you go. There's your glorious rule of Vlad, right? If the story ended there, we probably wouldn't know anything about this guy. But the story continues. And it gets a little bit more interesting here. Because we have to do some educated guessing, and this is going to tell us a little bit more about Vlad's past. Because he's going to spend some time in the Ottoman world. And it's pretty clear that he becomes fluent in Turkish. He's going to spend some time with the upper echelons of the Ottoman world. These people called beys, B-E-Y, these big generals, nobles, super rich people. He pretty clearly has at least a visual face-to-face knowledge of the Sultan at the time, who was one of the most powerful rulers in the world. And he's going to start kind of understanding Ottoman tactics. If you spend a lot of time around people, especially in their care and with their help, you're going to just learn about how they operate. And this is going to be good for Vlad later on because he's going to use that against them. But eventually he's going to kind of tire of being amongst the Ottomans. He wants to go back and live amongst his own people. But Wallachia at the time is not an independent country as we understood it. So he goes to Moldavia, this other country that's up on the border. And this is where I can show you another map. This is going to hopefully clarify some things that I've been mentioning here. Let me back up this map here. Okay, so again, at this point in time, this region right over here is the Ottoman Empire. Oh, why can't you see that? Yeah, because OBS did crazy stuff, and I had to reboot, and the image thing doesn't work. Super. Yeah, buddy. Man, if it's not one thing, it's another, is it? Fiddlesticks. Well, I guess that means pictures are out. No, let me switch over here. And let me just do this kind of kit bashed on the fly. Open you up. And I'll just add you right here. How about that? And of course, it won't show. Super D duper. Oh well. There goes that idea. Man, this is why I really need to fix my Discord up so I can just throw these pictures on there. Alas, I apologize, everybody. The screen is black. Yeah, I was trying to get pictures to work, and I don't know what happened. Pictures are not going to happen for the rest of the stream because OBS is a mess, and the way that I would have to do it is to turn OBS back off again. So the most of the stuff was just pictures of people. So I apologize again. This stream is kind of kicking my butt. I'm not pleased with it. Anyway. Blah. Okay, so Vlad goes back to live in Moldavia. And Moldavia is, again, probably where his mother came from, and he probably had some family that lived there. And while he's in Moldavia, he's going to start trying to work his way back into his home country of Wallachia. And this is going to be constantly blocked by John Hunyadi, who is going to send letters to the people of Wallachia saying, look, if you let this guy back in, I'm going to make it rough on you. So he has to kind of back off. He has to think about how to handle this scenario. He had actually sneaked down into Wallachia and was living in one of the bigger cities there. But once John Hunyadi finds that out, Vlad has to run back up to Moldavia. So Vlad realizes at this point that he's not going to be able to take over his country again without John Hunyadi's approval. So he goes and sucks up to John Hunyadi, and he goes, look, you got to let me back in. I'm on your side. I'm going to be your friend. You don't like the Polish. You don't like the Ottomans. I just want to rule my country, man. Just help me out. So somehow Vlad convinces John Hunyadi to back him. And the Hungarians actually send an army with Vlad to help him take back Wallachia and put himself on the throne. And this is going to be the pokey part of his rule. So from 1456 to 1462, this period of time that's about 8 years long, this is going to be, well, it's about 7.5 or so. This is going to be the entire period of time that the vast majority of the Vlad myth comes from, which is really bizarre, right? Usually when we have these big stories about people and they are kind of quasi-mythological, they did stuff for huge amounts of time. Like Alexander the Great did all of this stuff in a short period of time, but, you know, that's an aberration. You know, like George Washington, how much stuff did he do for America, right? And we have Caesar Augustus, who did all this stuff for Rome and lived for, like, you know, all these decades long. This little snippet of time is really going to be where the whole myth comes from. So what that tells you is a few things. Number one, it's jam-packed full of crazy stuff. And number two, the crazy stuff is crazy. This is where the Impaler is going to show up. So in 1448, when Vlad takes over Wallachia, and he is actually going to be allowed to rule as voivode, he decides to get even. Because there are a lot of people inside of Wallachia that had sold his father out, his father and his older brother, and had made it very difficult for him to return. And those people are going to be dead. And it's not going to be like nice dead. He's going to spend a lot of time systematically wiping out anybody that either made it troublesome for him or was involved in his father's death. And this is going to be brutal. He's going to have a lot of these people burned alive. He's going to have some of them dismembered and then the parts of them burned. He doesn't give them the quick, easy deaths. It's the brutal, kind of horrible, monster-y kind of thing that you might expect from Vlad the Impaler. He's not really doing the impaling yet. That comes a little bit later, but the sort of atmosphere of impaling is starting to show up, because this guy's not going to be a nice dude about it. Like, you betrayed my family, I'm going to kill you. And he does this for personal reasons, but also for financial reasons, because his kingdom was broke. He's got to work his way up to it before it gets to a point, right? Vlad doesn't have a lot of money, and a lot of these families that he's killing are the sort of nobles of Wallachia, and guess what he's doing with all the money? Well, he's either pocketing it himself or he's redistributing that money to the people that are supporting him. So he's using this as an economic tool to sort of build his power base. And this is going to start making the Hungarians a little uncomfortable, because they thought, based on whatever discussion that they had, and we don't even really know how Vlad convinced John Hunyadi to back him in the first place. We don't know if there was a deal or if they had some sort of like magic handshake or something. We really don't know. But we know that the Hungarians start getting really, really upset because Vlad is killing so many of these people that had initially been on John Hunyadi's side, because they're the ones who had sort of given John Hunyadi Wallachia to begin with. So they're starting to kind of mistrust Vlad a little bit. And he's not making it easy to trust him, because he's literally killing anybody that doesn't like him very much. Definitely an authoritarian dictator. Maybe he wanted to make Wallachia great again. Would that be Mawa? Let's take a sarcastic sip of water. Anyway, what's finally going to kind of bring all of this stuff to a point is that the Hungarians are going to get hacked off at Vlad and tell him basically, you need to change the ways that you're following. And Vlad goes, well, if you're going to get ticked off at me, I'll just go back to the Ottomans. And he does. He sends a letter to the Sultan and packs it up with fealty money. Basically, he's going to pay tribute to the Ottomans, literally. And this is like the final straw. Around this time, John Hunyadi is actually going to die. And his son is going to actually end up in the throne of Hungary. This guy's name is Matthias Corvinus. Or Matthew the Crow. And John Hunyadi being dead is a good thing for Vlad, because he didn't like that guy anyway. And when Corvinus recognizes that Vlad is kind of going back on the deal and is buddying up with the Ottomans, Corvinus sends him a letter and goes, you are officially on the naughty list and you're getting coal for Christmas. And Vlad goes, you're not your father. I don't care for you. I'm going to do what I want to do. It's time to take some of my land. And this is where Transylvania is going to come in. We hadn't even gotten to Transylvania yet. Transylvania was a region that was north of Wallachia that was normally controlled by the Hungarians. But because John Hunyadi is dead and the image of Hungary is somewhat weakened, Vlad goes, time to go, buddy. And he reaches out to Moldavia, and Wallachia and Moldavia go, it's time to strike back against Hungary. These punks, these guys that have pushed us around, we're going to push them around. And this is where Transylvania first falls to Vlad. This is in the late 1450s and the early part of the 1460s. And when Vlad gets into Transylvania, the people there do not like him, right? They know about all of the crazy stuff that he had been doing down in Wallachia. They knew that he had turned his back on the good Christians of Hungary, and they were very upset with this guy coming in and just deciding to take everything over. And this is when he impales them. Tens of thousands of them end up on his bad naughty list, and he sticks them up all down the roads of Transylvania. This is something that is so unheard of in the kind of Christian world of that time, of Christians being that brutal to Christians. This is kind of a psychic shockwave that gets sent through the entire region. And what makes it even worse is that Vlad is very sort of calculating with the people that he's going after. He's only going after certain ethnic groups that had been troublesome to the Wallachians in the past, especially the Transylvanian Saxons. These Saxons are only kind of moderately related to the British Saxons, and not at all related to the Mouse Saxons. As a bit of a joke there. Or I guess that would be the Mouse Saxon. But the Transylvanians getting impaled is a big moment. And this is going to be sort of the beginning of the end for Vlad. Even his own people, like the people inside of his army that are kind of the ones doing the impaling, they go, man, this is a bit too much. This is too far. And the Hungarians are so shocked that they decide, we've just got to get rid of this guy. Like, he is the devil. And this really is where the use of calling him Dragon or Dracula, son of the dragon, is really going to start getting used. Because you bring with that all of the devil imagery, right? The guy that's bloodthirsty and evil and is willing to do whatever it takes to get his way. There's some nasty, nasty stuff written and circulated about Vlad at this time. And the Hungarians reach out to the Polish and go, look, we recognize that we did some stuff that we probably shouldn't have done when we sent this guy back down there. But if you want to go back and take Wallachia again, we would rather have you, the Polish, who we don't like, in control of Wallachia than that guy. And this is going to really hack off Vlad. And he is going to violently protect his territory. I mean, like, super disproportionately violent. The Polish and Hungarian armies that come into that come into Wallachia to try to get rid of this guy are going to be met with very disproportionate retaliation, attacks against just kind of common people, really, really, really nasty fighting stuff. Lots of no taking prisoners, no quarter offered. And in the midst of all of this stuff, the Transylvanians are going to sort of recognize that it's their time. Like, we can push this guy out, right? And that was the wrong move. Because when the Transylvanians, who had initially been so shocked that they were following Vlad, decided that they were going to push back against him, oh no, that was so bad. Because he pokes more of them up. And this time around is about as bad as the first round. And it is absolutely mentally devastating. The Polish army only fights a couple of battles against him, and after seeing kind of what he's doing to people that are nominally his own citizens, they go, we don't want anything to do with this guy. And the Polish recognize that they were not as interested as they thought in Wallachia, and the Polish go home. And this is weird, because Wallachia is tiny. They should have just, like, rolled over, right? But instead you've got this madman up in the hills running people up on 14-foot-tall wooden posts, and they're his own citizens. These aren't even the bad guys, right? These are his people that are supposed to be paying him taxes and stuff. And this is just crazy. And this is what's going to be kind of the telltale moment where even the Ottomans go, I don't know if we want to be friends with this guy anymore. And that's okay with Vlad, because these big military expenditures have got him broke again. He had sort of looted all of Transylvania's money and taken a lot of the stuff out of there, and he didn't really have enough money to pay them tribute anyway. And eventually the Ottomans are going to start wondering where their money is. right? So they don't want to necessarily get up there and poke around at him. That was a bad pun. They don't want to make things uncomfortable. Oh, that's still a bad pun. There's a level of discomfort that they are willing to take, and it doesn't extend to impalement, right? Impaling, no, we didn't sign up for impaling. No, exactly, right? So, what's going to go happen? Well, eventually, the Ottomans get tired of not getting that money, because the Ottomans are actually, pardon me, the Ottomans are spending a lot of money in wars on 3 different continents. They're fighting in other parts of Europe, they're fighting in Africa, they're also fighting over in the further parts of Asia. So they need whatever money they can get. And so eventually they start sending Vlad kind of very direct, but also very sort of friendly letters like, hey, we're friends, and friends honor their debts, wink, wink, right? And Vlad can see between the lines of this all day long. And he understands that it won't be too long before the Ottomans are going to show up and demand their money. And this is where weird stuff happens, because Vlad goes, okay, I need an ally or 2 or 3 to fight against the Ottomans. Who should I go to? Well, he ends up going to Corvinus, the guy who he had just fought a war against and had terrorized, and goes, hey man, you want to help me fight the Ottomans? And Corvinus somehow manages to agree. Like, yeah, okay, we'll fight the Ottomans. But what happens is that Corvinus is going to sell him out. And Corvinus has been in contact with the Ottomans and basically told this guy, told the Ottomans, look, I'm going to get Vlad to this location. You need to show up, capture him, and then get him out of my hair. And you deal with the crazy madman. But Vlad catches scent of this trap ahead of time, and now he's like really hacked off, because he decides that his friend who had just told him, yes, I'll help you, is going to betray him, and did. And the Ottomans are interested in killing him too, even though they're supposed to be his friend, right? And he goes, I'll just invade the Ottoman territory. And so he's going to invade Bulgaria, which is kind of crazy. Because, like, you're already broke and you're in a bad spot. Why are you going to make it worse? And when he gets down to Bulgaria, he kills tens of thousands of people there and loots the mess out of a lot of the cities and gets back home in a lot better position. Because now the myth of him is growing, and like these guys don't know how to handle him. When you think, oh, he's going to go back home and be a good little boy, is when he decides to invade you and kill tens of thousands of your people, right? You only rule, you do only live once, but he ruled 3 times, so you can only rule thrice. Is that Yort? You only rule thrice. Yort. Yort. Anyway, so the Ottomans at this point have decided that Vlad has to go. Everybody has decided that Vlad has to go. And so the Ottomans are going to reach out to, guess who? Vlad's brother. His younger brother, Radu, who had still been very much involved in the Ottoman world, had still lived in the Ottoman territory for quite some time. Ottoman sources actually referred to him as Radu Bey, meaning that he's one of these big generals. You can also see him referenced in history as Radu the Beautiful. Because apparently he was a good-looking guy. I should do fair warning. If you Google that and go to images, this guy has sort of been picked up by some interesting subreddit people on the internet and turned into something that's not completely historically accurate. So be forewarned, and now I know some of you are going over to Google it just to see what I'm talking about. Google at your own risk, Radu the Beautiful. Anyway, So the Ottomans are going to go to Radu and go, do you want to go kill your brother? And he's like, okay, fine, whatever. He's a crazy guy. And the Sultan at the time had just done some really amazing stuff. This is a guy named, this Sultan's name is Mehmet II, also known as Mehmet the Conqueror. And in 1453, he had taken Constantinople and ended the Byzantine Empire. This guy was a super powerful military leader. And he goes, you go into Wallachia, you get rid of your brother, I'm going to put you on the throne, and then we'll be buddies. And Radu is okay with this. So he invades, and they have a big army. Some sources say the army of the Ottomans was 150,000 men. That is probably greatly exaggerated. But even if it was a third of that, that's still 50,000 guys, which is a humongous army for this period of time, right? They invade Wallachia, and Vlad has to retreat. And he retreats to the city called Targovishte, and it's up in the mountains. And this is where Radu is going to kind of claim victories. Like, look, I've got him on the run, and Mehmet is actually going to come up and kind of witness the fall of this guy. And this is the big moment, right? Because when Mehmet and Radu get into Targovishte, Vlad had impaled the entire city, captured Muslim troops, men, women, children, babies, old people, something like 23,000 people. He had impaled the entire population of the city. These are his people. And he had left that and then retreated out of the city so that Mehmet and his brother could enter the city and witness this horrible sight. And at that point, Mehmet goes, nope. And decides this is freaking me out, man. But Mehmet is going to be a wise enough general to understand that even though Vlad is beyond crazy, he can't just run away. And so the Ottomans are going to basically scale their maneuvers to keep Vlad out of cities, and eventually Vlad is going to have to run back to Transylvania. And this is where the whole crazy bloodthirsty guy up in the castle mountains are going to be started. The bloodthirsty murderer of the innocent children is going to be started, because Vlad's still alive up in this castle in Transylvania. Wallachia is going to get given to Radu, and later there's going to be a lot of other things that are going on that sort of push people around and get people maneuvered into Wallachia, but Vlad's still stuck up in this tower in Transylvania. And eventually the Transylvanian people realize that he's not strong anymore. Like, the army that he had brought with him was vastly diminished. He couldn't pay them anymore. He didn't really have enough supplies to keep them with him. And when he gets weak, the Transylvanians sell him out. They send a letter to Corvinus, the king of Hungary, and they go, this is where he is. Please, dear God, come get him. And for the next 14 years, we know basically nothing about Vlad's life. From 1462 to 1476, he is an exiled captive of the Hungarians. We know that at some point in this period of time, he married his wife, who's not Mina from the book. She is a Hungarian noble. Vlad does have a kid at some point in this period of time, but we don't really know very much else about him. This might hurt some people's minds, though, but Bran Castle, if you want to Google that, I had a picture of it, but I can't show it because my my images are all futzed up. But Bran Castle is kind of, pitched as Dracula's castle. There's not really any actual evidence that he stepped foot in that castle ever. The only city that we know that he stayed in during this period of time is a place called Pacht, which is not near Bran Castle. We don't even necessarily know if that, like I said, like if he ever even went there. The story came that during some part of his exile he was stationed there, but we really don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But if you're going to go there and hope for the ghost of Dracula, you're not going to find it. So while Vlad is spending another 14 years in exile, what's going on? Well, Corvinus actually gets in a little bit of trouble because the Catholic Church at the time kind of liked the idea of having Vlad against the Ottomans because he was successful in keeping them out. I mean, he was a drastic mass murdering crazy person, but you can't say that he didn't get the job done. And Corvinus is actually going to have to forge some documents to send to the church to sort of give him justification for holding Vlad. And the next time we really see Vlad's name come up is this period of time in 1475 when the Ottomans had begun to expand a little bit further. So after the Ottomans took Wallachia, Wallachia is going to get very, very cozy with the Ottomans because the rulers put there are put there by the Ottomans. Again, Radu was basically all but Ottoman. He had lived in the Ottoman territory more than he had lived in Wallachia for his life at that point. And that's going to put Moldavia on the front line. And remember, Vlad has ties to Moldavia through his mother. And the rulers of Moldavia are going to write a letter to Corvinus and go, we're in bad shape. The Ottomans are looking at invading us. Part of Moldavia does fall to the Ottomans. And they go, what can you do to help us? We need some power. We need some firepower. Can you give us an army? And Corvinus goes, I don't really have an army to spare. And they go, okay, can you lend us some money? And Corvinus goes, I really don't have any money. And Moldavia goes, is there anything that you can do to help Christians fight against the Ottomans? And Corvinus goes, I've got the holy hand grenade. No, they go, well, we do have Vlad, and it might be crazy, but we could turn him loose and say that he's the rightful ruler of Wallachia and send him back to Wallachia. 3 sir. Yeah, right. And send Vlad back to Wallachia and let him terrorize the Ottomans. And the Moldavians go, yeah, I'll take that. So, coming out from a 14-year hiatus, Vlad gets re-recognized as Voivode of Wallachia, and they tell him, we're going to send you into Wallachia. We're not going to send you money. We're not going to send you with an army. We're just going to send you in. This is like some sort of like Rambo Black Op thing, right? Your mission, if you choose to accept it, build an army from scratch and repel the Ottomans and your brother from Wallachia. And he gets into Transylvania and he manages to find some money, but he doesn't really ever get any traction in Wallachia. The Ottoman presence there is just too strong. There aren't really any people that will rally to his side. I mean, imagine Vlad the Impaler showing up in Transylvania going, hey guys, who wants to join up and fight with me? I mean, how many people are going to be lining up to sign the roster for his army? How many of the noble houses in Wallachia are going to pledge their banner to this crazy person? So the attempt to retake Wallachia doesn't go so great. And now that he was loose, Corvinus actually gets this idea that he can kind of use him as a warlord, right? So he can kind of harness the crazy power and use that against his opponents. And he's going to send him over to fight in Serbia. The Serbs had been fighting against the Ottomans as well. And the presence of Vlad the Impaler at the head of Hungarian and Serbian forces is going to show some promise. The Serbs actually do manage to win a couple of big battles against the Ottomans. And so Corvinus is like, can I keep the dog on the leash, right? Maybe I've got some use for this guy finally. And then Moldavia falls completely to the Ottomans. And this is a pretty big moment. And Corvinus is going to go, all right, Vlad, go free your people. These are your family members, albeit an extended family. You spent time there, go save them. And he's actually going to make it work. He gets over to Moldavia, he rallies the Moldavian army, and he manages to restore both Moldavian independence. And because the Ottomans were on the ropes at that point, not really expecting these people to fight back so much, he actually does restore the independence of Wallachia as well. And so for the third time, 3-time world champ, right? Or Hungarian champ, or whatever. He never took the throne by himself. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, he can't rule without somebody else backing him. But he's the voivode again, and I just whacked my microphone here. So the Hungarian army plus the Moldavian army plus the kind of restored Wallachian army are going to decide to make Wallachia independent again. He's going to take over in 1476, and he's going to say, this is going to be a great time. And he doesn't make it another year. Because the Ottomans go, not you again. Not this time. And they're going to return with an enormous army. Another one of these supposed 100,000-man armies. It was not 100,000 men. It was a big army, though. And they catch Vlad. Vlad actually decides to lead the battle from the battlefield. He feels like his presence might inspire the men more. But all this is going to do is get him captured. And somewhere in the battle between the end of 1476 or the beginning of 1477, he is caught on the battlefield. And when the Ottomans catch him, they don't take him prisoner. They chop his body into small pieces. Then they chop those pieces into smaller pieces, and then they do horrible, horrible things to the pieces. And this is the end of Vlad the Impaler. Quite literally the end. The country of Wallachia is going to fall back to Ottoman control, as is Moldavia. The Hungarians are going to end up facing a catastrophic defeat. Or is it? Is this where he gets his little pieces get put in a casket and buried with Transylvanian dirt, and he, using the power of his deal with the devil and his suckling from the teat of the dragon, manages to reform his body and become Dracula? The guy is super fascinating, but he is both bigger and smaller than his myth. And he's a fascinating individual because of all of these weird dichotomies. The only time he got to rule in his own way was this tiny little window, and he didn't even do that very successfully. And there were a lot of forces allayed against him, but he only took the throne the first time with outside power. He only took the throne second time with outside power, and he only took the throne third time with outside power. This guy wasn't some, massively individually powerful guy. He was a border lord stuck between a lot of other people that was so brutal he managed to play politics well. And I guess that this is a precedent for playing politics with the sharp end of a stick, pun intended. But what happened to him at the end, that is an unintended pun. But what happened to him at the moment of his death is that he got denied even the most basic of burials. They eliminated him from the history books. So if you say who's Vlad the Impaler, it's not the myth. It's a sad guy who spent more years of his life outside of his country than ruling his country. So many pointy stick puns. Yeah. There are good pointy stick puns available here, right? You might as well take the pointy stick puns if you can. But how do you make sense of this? This is the question. And what can we learn from Vlad the Impaler, right? If I were to try to sum up who this guy was, I would just say that you can't rule completely like this without at least caring for people a little bit, right? He was a bit of a prick. Good one. Hey, Lagger, what's up, man? So, very, very convoluted person, very misunderstood person. Not a lot of people know very much about him. I would venture a guess that this was the longest conversation that you've probably ever had about Vlad the Impaler. And I would also venture a guess that it's probably the most factually accurate one. And of course, you're welcome to think that I'm full of crap. And please do go check out all of the stuff that I say online. Don't ever believe it just because I said it. If you have questions, you're welcome to check that out. But I guess what I'm trying to say is the myth of somebody can be right and it can be wrong. You get what I'm saying? He was a product of his times and a product of the Ottoman courtyard. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the scenario. But so there we go. That's Vlad the Impaler. Anybody have any questions about this guy? Fascinating though he may be. Unfortunately, there are a lot of things we just don't know. There are big chunks of his life at the beginning and towards the end that we don't get. You know, he only ruled. So if he was born in around 1430 and he died in 1477, that means he only lived 47 years, right? So he's only 47 years old, or so. He might have been a little bit older than that. And let's just say 50 because it's a nice round number, right? Well, we know that he was imprisoned for 14 of those years, and we know that for the first 12 or 13 years of his life, we don't know anything. So half of his life, we don't know what he was doing. That's kind of crazy, kind of weird stuff. All right, not seeing any questions, and that's okay. Maybe I gave you everything that you wanted to know and a little bit more. He's a weird dude. All right, so that leads us, and if you have other questions, by all means, go ahead and throw those in. Or if you have some sarcastic comments or goofy puns or pointy stick puns, go ahead and throw those in too. Yeah, and we talked about that, Lager. For about 8 years, managed to keep the Ottomans off the border, which was more than some people were able to do. But weird guy. All right, I am looking, and I think I'm in the wrong window. Let me go over to this window. Looking for my polling data so that we can talk about what we want to cover next. Hey, here we go. All right, so again, the way that the situation here works is that we have every other Tuesday we have viewer request episodes. And every time we do one, that topic gets removed from contention and we add a new one to contention. And we hold over the responses from the last one, which is what I'm loading right now. I was reminded between this poll and last poll that I had left off a topic when we were talking about the Maya, which was our second episode. I had left off the Mongols from consideration. So I'm going to load up our options here. All right, I'm going to set the poll for 2 minutes. And here we go. So, if you will look in the top part of your chat window, there will be a drop-down menu, and you will get to vote on the topic of our next potential viewer request. And again, all of these topics that are listed are ones that have come from the viewers. So these are things that people are interested in. And I've got 2 votes, and I have at least 13 people in the stream right now. So make sure you go vote. Wow. Oh, there we go. For a second there, Inca was just running away with it. So now we have a race on. I think I was missing something in the chat here. Since you did a Vlad Tepes stream and his war against the Ottoman Tyranny, I have a question regarding those times. Go for it. I'll answer that question while we're waiting on the results of the poll here to come in. Eight, 9. Got 9 people voted. I think I've got more people than that in the room, so if you haven't voted, please feel free to do so. And if you don't want to, that's all right. I can also take this opportunity, perhaps, to... Nope, I can't do that at the same time I'm doing this. That's okay. And it looks like the Inca. The Inca. This is a good topic. I actually posted a link about the Inca earlier on my Twitter today. There's some interesting water basin, spirally neat little guys. There's a word for them, and I can't accurately pronounce it. I need to look up and get somebody to say it for me. But if you go to my Twitter @somehistoryguy, you can check out the link that I posted today. There's some interesting archaeological stuff coming out of the world of the Inca today that I'm pretty excited about. I like Native American stuff quite a bit. Actually spoke via email today with a professor from the University of Pennsylvania, one of the top archaeological schools in the United States, who specializes in especially lower Mississippian culture, mound building people. And when I say Mississippi, I don't mean the state, I mean the river. So Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi, who's doing archaeological work out in a region around Natchez in Mississippi here. And got some good information from her. Pretty excited about that. What happened to Constantinople, Nicomedia, Miletus, Ephesus, 70 big urban cities, 2,000 smaller towns in Asia Minor, Antioch, northern Syria? Why is the Western historiography forgotten those atrocities, genocide of Turkish nomads? I don't think that historians have. I think that there is a little bit of a bias in Western society, especially Western history, to only read Western sources. And a lot of the big sources from that time aren't written in English. You know, you have people like Al-Tabari, who wrote a 12-volume, 5,000-something page-long history of the entire Muslim world. And you have a whole bunch of people that are writing that a lot of Western people don't talk about because those are the Eastern sources and they can't be trusted. But and if you're talking about like, why don't you hear that in history class? I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of the modern historical ideas skim over the entire period of time of Muslim expansion. Like if you go to an average history class in high school in the United States, you don't get Muslim expansion at all. You don't see. You might get a discussion about Muhammad and the foundations of Islam, and then you don't talk about the Ottomans again until World War I. And that's partially because the curriculum in the United States is so messed up, but it's also because it's just not good. People, especially in the West, don't like talking about all the times they got their butt kicked. They don't like hearing about the times that they weren't the forefront of society. It's the same reason why you don't get a lot of discussion about things like the Mughal Empire in India or the Song Dynasty in China, because Western history doesn't like it when the Western culture isn't the dominant culture of the world. So you sort of skim over those periods of time, and hopefully you can connect that back to a moment where the Western culture is the dominant culture in the world. But for the vast majority of the time between the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, you might be able to stretch that to the end of Justinian's reign or maybe Heraclius's reign. But after the expansion of Islam, Western Europe is not the forefront of society. The scientific advances that were made in the Muslim world and the Chinese world and the Indian world are vastly better than the Western world at that time. And they don't like to talk about that. They like to talk about Charlemagne, who had a big kingdom, yeah. But if you compare Charlemagne's kingdom in square mileage to the Chinese emperor ruling at the same time, it's a fraction of it. But you don't want to talk about that because that's not when Western culture was in vogue. Because the state of education is very sad, and it really is. It really is, and it's filtered a lot. And again, it's not completely in. And I really need my opinion hat right now. Maybe I should put the adventure hat on upside down. And this can be the opinion hat for the moment. Part of the problem is that history is very frequently looked at as a blow-off subject. That the liberal arts are not really important, that the important stuff is math and science. And I'm not trying to say that math and science aren't important. They are vitally important. You have to understand that stuff to understand the way that the world physically works, right? But if you look at stuff, and I taught high school for 6 years, so I have firsthand experience on this stuff. When they plan a field trip and they're going to miss part of the day, if part of that day has history in it, nobody really needs history. If they're going to have a period where students have to go to a meeting, schedule it during history class. Nobody really cares about history. If there's going to be a day when there's a standardized test and everybody has to take a standardized test, put it during the history period of time. Nobody really cares. If they're going to do something that takes away part of the day, they're going to take away the history class. And I've literally seen this happen in multiple schools. And you might have had that same experience as well when you were in school. But part of the problem is that history just isn't given the same level of importance. And part of that is because the vogue of the world right now is shifting much more technological, right? So you have a lot more emphasis on stuff like, computers and science and lab stuff and, medical field and all of these things. And that's just sort of a pendulum swing, right? So if you go back to when I was going through elementary school, liberal arts were much more prevalent because things kind of moved back and forth. There's a big glut of doctors that got graduated and nobody could find a job being a doctor. So people decided to go be liberal arts majors and go be lawyers and teachers. And then there was a giant glut of that started in the late 90s, right around the same time that the internet was popping up in most people's lives. And the pendulum swung back to the STEM stuff, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And it might not swing back this time. And again, I'm wearing the inventor hat upside down to symbolize that this is my opinion. But I do have personal experience with this, and I have studied education quite a bit from a kind of academic perspective. there's a lot of problems with the education system, not just in America, but in a lot of the ways that we view the past. There used to be a big cultural pole in the East with multiple New Yorks that shaped the political things of the world for centuries, if not millennia. Don't forget about us. We were genocided like no one in history, even in recent years. The Greeks have been targeted, yeah. I don't know if they've been genocided more than anybody else in history. I think Africa has you beat maybe there, especially the western coast of Africa. And I'm not trying to say like it's a competition to be the most genocided people. I'm not trying to discriminate or devalue what happened. I mean, the stuff that happens to the Greek people, even all the way up until the Balkan Wars in the 90s. There's some truly atrocious things that have gone down there. But yeah, part of the problem of why we keep repeating history is that we never really learned from it. And I don't really like that adage that those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. Mostly because you can know the past and still do the same thing over and over again, right? You can do something that you know is dumb and still get the same result. The adage would normally be that if you remembered the past, you wouldn't repeat the mistakes. But, I mean, look at the government of America right now. We live in a country that has some of the most documented and well-documented history on Earth. And, I mean, we keep screwing stuff up over and over again. But such is life, right? All right, ladies and gentlemen. What was that? Oh, that was mine. Okay, wait. I missed some stuff. My family is victims from Turkish genocide of 1920s, originating from the Greeks. Yeah, so there are real atrocities that have gone down against the Greek people, and I am not trying to take anything away from that. And the history between the people of the Balkans and the Ottomans has not been a peaceful history since it started. Going back to the early 1300s, for the last 750-ish years, the Ottoman people or the Turkish people and the Balkan people have had very, very rough relationships. And in most of those scenarios, the Ottomans were the more powerful of the groups. History never repeats itself, but it does rhyme. I like that quote a lot more. And I also like Mark Twain's writing and some of his opinions. We also have to remember that he was a white guy at that time period in the 1800s, which meant that he was super racist and super misogynist. But that doesn't mean he didn't write some decent stuff every now and then. Cave Geek Art. Hey, Shane McKinnis, I'm glad I caught you live. Hey, man, how's it going? For those of you that do not know, missed it at Cave. Cave Geek Art is a streamer here on Twitch. He is an artistic cartographer. Does really cool maps that are typically really big stuff. I've watched him on stream a few times, making a big map from Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which I found soothing in a certain way. Going okay, eating dinner, probably going to do a clip deleting stream later. Yeah, my stream dropped on me right at the beginning. I didn't get 10 minutes in and my stream collapsed. So I don't know what I'm going to do about all that stuff. Twitch is being funky, and I don't know if it's my computer or just being funky. All right, so let's see if there's anybody, and we're actually just wrapping up Cave Geek. Sorry to have you come in and bug right on out. So we have 3 options going on here. We have Steve Sketches, who is doing some work here on a shield. Oh, nope, he's doing a whole warrior with a big old battle axe. That was not a shield. Steve Sketches is a pretty cool guy that does a lot of D&D commission kind of stuff. We've also got Cat Videos, who is doing some leftover pieces that looks like it's from Mermaid. And we have my friend Art of Lee. Let me see what Lee is doing here. Nope, back. Lee is doing what looks like a berserker character here. Kind of looks like Blanca from Street Fighter with a giant sword. So Cave Geek was going to suggest both Steve and Lee. Anybody else have opinions? Again, Steve, sketches, Cat Videos, Art of Lee. We've rated Art of Lee and Steve and Cat Videos before. Steve Sketches, another great guy, great artist, professional artist, pretty cool chat. Any opinions from anybody before we head out that way? Watch the stream after you. Okay, yeah. Again, Lagger, be aware that the first part of the stream got cut, so there are 2 videos. DL Pancake is also on. I'm not familiar with DL Pancake. All right, anybody have opinions? Nobody ever has opinions about raids, so let's just pick a raid. We raided Lee last time. Nope, we raided Cat Videos last time. We raided Lee before that. Let's raid Steve Sketches. What shall be our rallying cry? David Lee Pancake. He's a sculptor. Oh, I'll have to check that out. Katie, just to let you know, I don't like rating stuff unless I've been in there first, so I can kind of give everybody a little bit of a heads up. Not that I screen anybody out or discriminate against anybody. I just don't want to drop anybody where I don't necessarily. I want to give somebody a good recommendation, if that makes any sense. But I'll check out David Lee, and I said Pancake, which is not his name. I apologize, David Lee Pakake. And I'm probably saying that wrong too. All right, so let's rave. We're going to raid Steve Sketches. Really cool guy. We will yell Vlad. And if you have them, let's spam the adventure hat emote. Before we do that, any last minute requests? Anybody want to spend some channel points on anything? Summon anything from the deep, random history facts, random world capitals, anything like that? Okie dokie. I will take that as it's time to go. All right, so we will yell Vlad, spam some adventure hats. Thank you all for watching. I, as always, greatly appreciate it. Please be around next Thursday, this coming Thursday, at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to be talking about Babylonians and Assyrians in the Bronze Age, and it's going to be a good one. These people are some really super interesting people. I like them quite a bit. All right? Alrighty. So I will put on the outro screen, I'll hit the raid button, and I will see everybody next time. Thanks for coming by. I really appreciate it.